Hello, I'm Colleen Gallagher, CEO at Onward and Upward, and you're listening to the Association Insights podcast, where each week we interview association leaders from across the country to hear how they're trying new things, taking big risks, and delivering value for their members. We'll explore the realities of what it means to work in and with associations and bring you the insights and inspiration you need to advance your career and make big changes at your association. Let's get started.
Welcome back to the Association Insights podcast. I'm your host, Colleen Gallagher, President and CEO of Onward and Upward Marketing and Communications, and I'm really excited for today's conversation. Today's episode is part of our ongoing series spotlighting the winners of the 2025 Association Insights Com Impact Awards, recognizing associations that are setting the bar for strategic communications, storytelling, and engagement across our sector. And today we're joined by someone very special to us here at Onward and Upward, both as a client and as a leader we deeply respect. I'm thrilled to welcome Melissa Lohner, CEO of the National Society of Compliance Professionals, or NSCP. NSCP is the leading nonprofit membership organization supporting compliance professionals across the financial services industry, providing education, advocacy, and connection for a community navigating one of the most complex and highly regulated environments in business today. Melissa brings her nearly 30 years of experience across financial services, compliance, and firm operations. And before stepping into the CEO role, she had served as NSCP's Chief Operating Officer and Deputy Executive Director. And she's also a former chair of the NSC board, giving her a uniquely deep understanding of the organization and the community it serves. NSCP was recognized this year with the Com Impact Award for Outstanding Internal Communications for their thoughtful, people-first succession communication strategy during the transition from longtime Executive Director Lisa Crossley to Melissa's leadership. From early member comms and board alignment to the symbolic passing of the baton at their national conference, the organization really demonstrated what a transparent, mission-driven leadership transition can look like. Okay, so with all that, today we're going to talk about what this looked like behind the scenes, what associations can learn from it, and what's ahead for NSCP under Melissa's leadership. So Melissa, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today.
Thank you, Colleen, for having me and for that. I'm very honored to that introduction and humbled. Thank you very much.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Well, for listeners who aren't as familiar with NSCP, could you start by telling me about the mission, who you serve, and the role you all really play in the compliance community?
Absolutely. It's funny the amount of people that we even run into in our industry that aren't aware of the NSCP, which stands for the National Society of Compliance Professionals. We've been around since 1986, incorporated in 1987. So we really do have a long-standing, deep roots in the financial services industry. And our mission to educate, connect, and empower a community of diverse financial services compliance professionals really lives throughout our bloodline. Our members are compliance professionals in the financial service industry and broker-dealers, RIAs, private funds, private equity, insurance companies, pretty much all of the organizations you would see in the financial services industry. And what we really do, not just in the advocacy, but also education and connecting, is to provide a space for compliance professionals to come to for professional and personal development, to really have a sounding board of like-minded individuals. So connecting them with that networking, but also advocating for them on the industry side. There are a number of organizations out there that do it at the firm level. We are one of the only ones and the top one in the industry that actually does it at the financial professional level, so at the individual level.
Yeah, and I love how focused on that mission you are, and that everything comes back to that, because that's where we see success for associations is mission and members.
Well, and it really is true for us. And I think that goes to show just in our volunteers and our board and the offerings and educational opportunities and networking opportunities that we have. We really try to keep that, again, as our bloodline throughout the organization.
Yeah. Well, and you stepped into the CEO role following Lisa Crossley's decade of leadership, and I know you had a relationship with her. So what did that transition mean for you, both personally and professionally?
So that is a very loaded question. I think honored is the absolute best way. Honored that somebody I had looked up to for so long had identified and thought of me as their succession plan. Honored, not just from Lisa's support in me, but from the board's support in me and the members' support for an organization of individuals who were my peers for many, many years. As a CCO and being a compliance professional for the 26 years before I moved into this, those were my colleagues, my confidants, my networking group. And for them to support it and for Lisa to have identified it, humbled doesn't really even start to show the appreciation. I am still sometimes starstruck by it all.
I love that. And I think that, that feeling and that just truly embracing it and wanting to be that leader and feeling that humbled, it just shows, how right you are for this role and what a good position it is. And it's interesting because you are the third person we've had on the podcast in the last 2 months who has come from a member and then an internal role into the leadership role. And we're really seeing associations embrace that and just do really good things and have really smooth transitions because of that. So, I think that really helps when you think about leadership transition, because that can be hard, and obviously you all were recognized for the communications role you had around this. I'd love to know why it was so important for you to prioritize your board and your staff and member alignment before making broader announcements.
It's really funny. And when we think back on that, I think it all stems again from the heart, really. And Lisa and I both wanted this to be such a celebration. And I think too many times in the industry, especially in our industry, you see changes at the leadership level because something bad has happened, right?
Yeah.
Somebody has done something, they're on the outs, there is this transition. It's silent until it's announced. And we didn't have that. And we wanted it to be a celebration, not just for Lisa on her way out after all of the time and dedication and sweat equity she put into this, but a celebration for the organization going to a new level, a celebration for the board who supported this and helped us work it through, celebration for the staff who's going to help and assist and take it to new levels as well. Not just about the succession and the transition, but about the transition opportunities for the firm going forward.
Right. Well, and it was so thoughtful and phased over time that, it was that early release announcing it, member communications, and then ultimately that passing the baton moment at conference. Why was the sequencing so important in the process?
I think it was the sequence is what made the impact of, one, the celebration, and two, also the comfort level for everyone. I think one of the best things that somebody told me as we got further and further through the transition and just after the conference is, while it was a big celebration, they really felt like it wasn't a big deal, that there wasn't really anything happening. Like, the succession to them was not the key point. It was Lisa's retirement and the celebration of Lisa leaving, which is exactly what we wanted to happen, right? We wanted that to be the celebration and the succession of a new CEO coming in be a non-event.
Yeah, talk about success. If people aren't noticing, complaining, saying that's the goal, right?
Exactly. It was more about elevating the firm and celebrating Lisa. And I think we accomplished that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I also felt like there was such a great emphasis on that tone of being really warm, reassuring. You talked about that forward-looking piece, and how did you and the board as well think about striking that balance between honoring Lisa's legacy, like you talked about, but then also building confidence in your leadership going forward?
This is terrible to say, I think, but I think that was almost a non-issue as well. I think part of coming in, knowing the association and being part of an association member, right? The board didn't have to do a lot of communication around an extensive search that was made, and they brought in this new person, and this new person might not be from the industry, right? It was a little bit more of a known quantity. So the messaging was around how we're taking the firm to new levels, not about a new CEO coming in, taking over that may or may not know and understand the organization.
Yeah, that continuity, it's everything. So that's really fantastic that it worked out so well and so smoothly and so seamless without really, any fuss or concern or complaints from members. So that's a massive win. And the passing the baton, that was such a symbolic moment. I know it was really emotional for everyone there. What did that live transition mean for members, and what was the message you were hoping it would send?
Well, actually, my immediate message was don't bawl on stage. And so that was really what I was trying to accomplish. I also really wanted, again, to just celebrate not only where the organization had been, where it was going, why we had gotten to where we were with Lisa at the realm. I think she really wanted to say, I have comfort in this. I will be good. And this organization is going to go to great places now that I'm going to be gone, and I can't wait to watch it. So that was also a nice message. And we, again, just really wanted it to be a celebration showing the camaraderie with Lisa, not just Lisa and I, but Lisa and the board, Lisa and the members, and that this really was a good thing, not a transition because something bad had happened, right? That there was an event that happened.
Yeah. That's so spot on. One thing you and I talk a lot about when we're working on different things is transparency and how important that is. So I'd love to get your take on what role transparency should play in leadership transitions, and especially these membership-driven organizations for our fellow association listeners here, where trust and continuity, they're everything.
They are. And I think it's funny. I was always caught from a mold that if you are truthful and transparent, you don't have anything to hide. So you don't have to worry about what you're saying, right? And sometimes that's not always easy and comfortable to do. But I think it is important. It builds the strength, it builds the trust, and it builds the foundation going forward. And so it was, again, in everything we do, it's really important to just have that truthful message, and we're building more transparency around it. The transparency is really funny, right? Because I can feel like I said that. That's exactly what we said. But then you can go back and look at something and you're like, I was pretty sure that is what I said and put out there. And so we have a lot more eyes lately on things, looking at messages and stuff from different angles, because that transparency is very interesting. And so we are probably going to be over communicating things for a while just to have the information out there. One, because it's something our members ask for, but two, this is the time for it, right? If we don't have that transparency and that over communication, people will start to get concerned. And we just spent a whole bunch of time trying to make sure that they were comfortable in what we were doing. And so over communicating is probably going to be our route going forward for a while.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. Always good to make sure the message is there and people know it and they hear it, especially with everything else going on in the world today.
Yes.
We talked a bit already about, having been a member, having been in that deputy executive director position before taking on the CEO role, helped with that internal continuity. How do you think it helped you stepping into this? How did you feel about the transition, and were there any surprises?
I would say one, yes, there are always surprises. And that is the one message I have been articulating lately when people have asked me, like, you came from inside the organization. That's a new trend, like you pointed out, that we're seeing now, but it wasn't typical before. So what are you finding that was beneficial or challenging? And I would say that one, it was really good for me because I didn't have to learn the industry, right? I didn't necessarily have to learn so much about what our association did, what the intent of it, what the meaning of it was, what the history of it was, because I knew that. What I did realize is, just like anything else, there were things that were a surprise to me. There were things that didn't happen the way I expected them to happen. There were things that I look back on it now and I was like, well, that was probably not the brightest thing ever. Or, hey, that didn't go off like I thought it would, right? And so I think those of us that are coming from inside the industry, sometimes we assume things, which we all know better than to do, but it happens. And two, I think we also think it's going to go so much smoother because we know things, and sometimes knowing things is what actually is going to create the friction or the surprise that's coming your way. So
yeah. I love this honesty and this take, because I do feel that everyone I've talked to in similar positions is feeling that. And I think that's going to be really helpful for folks to hear. And that's how we learn. That's how we grow. And that's how we come out on the other side stronger. So, getting through there. But I still think having that knowledge is so incredibly helpful to be able to keep the association going without really missing a beat.
Yeah, I agree. I think back right now about all the things I'm learning from an association standpoint, right? Because I had the industry side. So I'm still learning tons, even on the industry side, from my new board members, from new members that I'm getting to know differently. I'm still learning tons from them every day. I don't really know right now, when I think back, how somebody who wasn't familiar with our industry would come into this and be able to move it as fast as it needs to move and fast as any association needs to go or any firm needs to go. I can't even concept that right now. That would have been a lot.
Yeah. Well, were there any other lessons learned during this process that you think other association leaders could keep in mind when they're planning for succession?
Tons of them, right? I would just say, be sure to continue learning every day. Just because you think you know what the organization was doing, what it meant, what the members want, there is still lots of opportunity to learn. I would also, be open to changes, and you have to be not afraid to take some risk and make mistakes. I think that's the biggest thing. And I'm not one that likes to make mistakes at all. But I think when you come into this from the standpoint that I was in, I am sometimes paralyzed by taking a risk or doing something that I would think will hurt the members or hurt the organization, or the members will not like, because I have such a love for this organization. And again, a lot of those people were my peers for so long that I really came on this side to help support the initiative. And so I think we have to remember not to let fear and the thought of failing or risk paralyze us.
Amen. I have nothing to add to that. I think that's so perfect. So you've had some time in this role now. What are you most excited about for the next chapter for NSCP?
Well, it is actually funny. So we have approved our new strategic plan for 26, 27, and 28. And there's a lot of work to be done on it. But I am so super excited about it. And part of it is really doing some listening tours and talking to our members about what they really want and what they'd like to see. We're talking about, different educational methods, different ways that we talk and engage with our members. There's a lot of opportunity here. And I think because we have such a good foundation to springboard off of, but yet it's so much fun to think about what we could be doing going forward. And I will be honest, Lisa, my previous predecessor, really encouraged me not to worry about the things that she did, right? And to really take this forward in what the membership of today needs. Like, she got it so far, and then not to feel like I'm going to offend her or anyone else, to take it to the next level, which is really comforting, right? Because sometimes you're like, oh, I don't want to hurt somebody's feelings here and hurt somebody's feelings here. And she was like, no, carte blanche, take this where you think you should go with the members. And I think she knew this, and I know this. There is a lot of opportunity right now. And I think we have a lot of good things coming our way.
Yeah, I do too. And I'm excited to see what you all do in the year ahead and the years beyond that, because I think it's a really, really bright future. It's been so fun talking to you on the podcast. Before we let you go, though, we like to wrap up all of our podcasts with a little, just for fun section, so our audience can get to know you, a little rapid fire style here. So first question, what's one small thing that's bringing you joy lately?
Coffee.
Always. Okay, what are you currently obsessed with? A book, show, hobby, whatever? Any big obsessions as of late?
Yeah, so two. Anyone who knows me will not be surprised that the thing I love most is coffee, and so that the thing that really brings me joy right now is coffee. I drink it in every way: hot, cold, black, milk, not. But also it's very funny, my kids' sports. I have kids in hockey and kids in volleyball, and they're two different sports, and we're traveling all the time with them, and it's here and there and yonder, and watching them grow and play and learn their own leadership methods. And I would say that is just super exciting for me on all different kinds of levels.
That makes me so happy. That was like my life growing up, and like my parents' commitment to being there made such a difference. And now that my daughter's starting, like, she's just 5, so she's, just getting on like swim team and stuff like that, and like, running in a herd of things, but it's just really special. So
it is a great time.
Yeah. All right. What's your ideal comfort food?
Again, it's terrible. Coffee. It is my hug in a cup. It is my hug in a cup. It's warm, it's cold, it's invigorating, it's inspiring, or it's comforting, and the hug in the cup.
Too funny. Okay. Last one. What's a travel moment that still makes you smile when you think about it?
So this is funny. I have two. One of them was, we took this big trip. We were living in Iowa at the time, and we took this big trip up through Detroit, into Canada, across. We were going to do all these things. We come back into the United States, and I get my purse stolen in the safest city in the United States. In which then we had to stay there a couple extra days. We weren't going to get to finish our entire trip. I, of course, as a mother, was heartbroken. I was like, I promised these kids this trip. They thought it was the funnest trip ever. They got to ride in a police car. They got to spend 3 hours in a police station. They got to see the person who stole mom's purse at the drugstore later that day. It was just the most exciting thing to them. They talk about it still today. And we look back at pictures and they're in front of the police station giving these funny faces. And it's so great. And we have another similar one where we were headed on this huge long trip. We get up to Tallahassee. The car completely breaks down. We sit in the parking lot for a while. We come home, we revamp. Then we're trying to outrun the hurricane to get going again. Again, I'm appalled. The whole vacation is ruined. This is going to be terrible. My kids talk about how much fun it was to try to outrun a hurricane and spend the night in a parking lot because we couldn't find any hotels to sleep for a couple hours and then keep going. So I use that, and I've been thinking a lot about that today in this podcast. In things will always happen, and they will more times than not, they will not go your way, but that does not mean that the experience failed.
Oh my gosh, yes. That hits me right in the feels. I absolutely love that. Melissa, thank you again. This was amazing, and I really appreciate you joining us on the podcast today.
Thank you, Colleen, for having me, and thank you again for the award. We're very humbled and excited to continue working with you.
That's a wrap for today's episode. The Association Insights Podcast, previously known as the Association 100 Podcast, is a production of Onward and Upward Marketing and Communications, where our mission is to make associations and nonprofits the go-to source in their industries through earned media and thought leadership. This podcast is an extension of our newsletter, a bi-monthly collection of best practices, top trends, helpful ideas, and smart strategies delivered straight to your inbox. Have you undertaken a big change at your association? Or do you have some words and wisdom from the trenches of association life? We want to hear from you, and so do our listeners. Drop us a note at info@onwardupward.com. That's info@onwardupwrd.com. Be sure to subscribe, give us a 5-star review, and share with your friends and colleagues. We're available anywhere podcasts are found. Come back next week for more association insights and inspiration. Thanks for tuning in.